So, just to refresh everyone of my topic, I decided to focus on newspapers and why there was a lack of coverage of the Afghanistan war in the media, specifically in newspapers. I chose that text to analyze simply because of my interest in journalism and other studies related to that. I think print journalism is a very timeless form of media, and I feel that although it's been around forever, it's losing respect and losing popularity. Um, some things that I really considered when analyzing this was the intent of the article and the text. Is the author writing with a purpose? Is that to inform, to educate, or to persuade? Some of the recognized tactics that were used by the media when these few stories were being presented was not relaying the full truth and using selective and rather objective stories to portray to the public, and narrowing the source of the experts to limit the amount of truth in the stories. Um, a U.S. Senator of 1917, I saw a quote by him. His name was Hiram Johnson, and he said, "The first casualty when war comes is truth." And I thought that kind of captured everything I was trying to kind of discover throughout my research into one quote, which I really liked. Again, as I've already stated, my method of research I'm choosing to use is the functionalist perspective and kind of consider how society affected war and how war was affecting society. And I think that's when that's broken down, that definition can kind of explain how every part of society functions on another, and everything kind of comes full circle. Um, and again, as I already mentioned, I think this can kind of be compared to earlier studies in this class, how society is the, ultimate producer. So they filter their interests and their needs and their wants down, and they kind of demand that from the media, and the media then spits that out to please them. I think there's a huge responsibility within the media to provide knowledge and insight to the public, and it just really trickles down to trying to maintain that social order, which I think the functionalist perspective really kind of tries to capture. My general objective, kind of my hypothesis while doing this research, was to form my own theory regarding the reason behind this lack of coverage based on all the other information that I had collected, and I kind of answered that when I discovered that basically the lack of coverage was based upon a lack of interest and a lack of funding. It would have costed millions and millions of dollars to create, publish, and broadcast all these stories relating to one giant 13-year-long war. So my results were similar to what I intended to discover based upon my hypothesis. Um, Lots of authors for CBS and Fox had kind of explained that exactly what I had hoped to answer, that there was a lack of interest and a lack of funding, and because of that, it was hard to kind of broadcast stories. Also, due to some of the surrounding dangers and the limited resources that America had in sending their reporters and their representatives to Afghanistan, that was also something to take into consideration, and the dangerous and terrible conditions to work in and kind of to attempt to survive once they had made it there to our bases. The pre-existing ideology developed to describe newspapers are considered four principles, and those include to exist, to communicate, to assert large amounts of facts and large amounts of opinion, and kind of provide value to the opinion of others. So I think this really coincides with the theoretical perspective that I decided to use, in which in both instances society is just really dependent upon another source for information and security. So the topics and the groups that I think were covered most in the media was the American Armed Forces. Typically, their successes, they were highlighted in a rather popular and glamorized fashion, I thought, and I think the media just kind of decided to portray simply American victories just to kind of provide an extra source of clarity and encourage the morale and the success within the nation. Some of my weaknesses, I think, was just choosing such a specific objective and a topic to stick to. I think I had a hard time kind of gathering information because I was so specific. I kind of had to change my objectives and specifically my method of research a couple of times just to kind of be able to develop some sort of hypothesis and then be able to get an answer. So for future research regarding this topic, I think it would be easier for someone with more resources, more kind of availability to talk to people who have greater interest and knowledge specifically in this field, and also with war, because I have no really prior knowledge pertaining to war at all. In journalism, it's limited. I had really strong ideas, I think. I just don't think I had the knowledge and the resources to make them come kind of as alive as I had hoped.